A very warm welcome to all the attendees and to all our esteemed panelists. We have today with us Professor Paddy. He is the Chief Knowledge Officer from QS, and we have QS iGauge as our knowledge partner for the virtual admissions fair, which we have launched for the first time. So today's topic, dear attendees, is shifting trends in career choices in the new COVID world. And I don't think there's a better example than our company, which also aptly fits in this topic. For the last 25 years, we've been organizing on-ground education fairs across the globe, but suddenly this COVID attacked and this COVID pandemic started. So even we had to shift ourselves from the on-ground comfort zone and come onto the virtual fair. And this is the first offering which we are starting off from yesterday. So we were having some technical glitches. It was absolutely a new baby that we are launching, but we are very proud that we managed to adapt and launch this in this COVID season. So I would like to first introduce our panelists that we have for today's session. We have Dr. Amita Dev. She's the Vice Chancellor, Indira Gandhi Technical University for Women, Delhi. Welcome, ma'am, to the platform.
Thank you.
We have Professor Parimal Mantke, Vice President, NIT University. Welcome, ma'am, to the platform.
Thank you.
And we have the moderator today, Professor Paddy. He's the Chief Knowledge Officer from QS iGauge. And we are waiting for Dr. Kamlesh Mishra, the Vice Chancellor, Rishi Hood University. As and when he joins in, we will put him, he will join in. So Paddy, over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. I also wish all the very luck for affairs.
Thank you. Needed it very badly.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that this is a new journey for all of us and for many of us who are in education, who are trying to see how we could bring the new change or the new normal, which people are seeing. And I think what you're doing is in fact indeed radical to make sure that even during these times, students get an opportunity to interact with institutions and can take I would say, informed decision. All kudos to affairs.
So Paddy, we also have Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra joining us. Welcome, sir. So while we've already started the panel, so I will ask Paddy to continue.
Sure, thank you. Welcome, Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra, Vice Chancellor, Rishi Hood University.
Thank you so
indeed,
much.
Sir, could you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear. I was just trying to get in and I was not able to get into the
Nice. So I did a small briefing, but I would again repeat the same so that you also get the theme of the session for today. So every speaker would get your initial talk, and that would be followed by a Q&A session. We will try to finish this by 4:30 because we have another panel coming up at about 5 o'clock. So we have just 30 minutes we need to prepare for that panel. The idea of this theme or the thematic session was shifting trends in career choices. All of your educators, you're holding very important positions, responsibility when it comes to higher education university. And I'm sure many of us aware that these COVID-19, which is a black swan movement, has absolutely disrupted higher education. Just not disrupting higher education, but also put a lot of questions in the minds of students who are potentially wanting to go or move into universities. As QS iGauge, we did do a study involving 7,000 students. We did float a survey, and some of very interesting questions that did originate from this survey are, many of them do not know whether, I'm sure many of you are also aware, institutions like Cambridge, Chicago, Harvard have all come out and declared that the next semester they're going to go online. So, we don't know how in India the situation is eventually going to emerge. The start of a new semester, is it absolutely going to be online? And many of the students do not know how they're going to be making their career choices, because if you see just a year back, students had a set way of taking decisions. They would visit the campus, they would interact with the students, they would interact with the faculty members, they would take a campus tour, and they could make an informed decision. Today, since travel is also a bit restricted, many of them are even worried to move out and see the campuses or interact with students. Their idea of choosing the career itself is being restricted, and many of the students are even thinking about dropping a year. So we thought that it would be apt for these students and parents to hear from educators like you, who could guide them how they can be still making these decisions, or choosing or making the right career choices even during the times of disruption. Keeping that in mind, we thought this topic is highly relevant, and no better than Dr. Amita Deb, Dr. Kamlesh Mishra, and Dr. Parimal to address the students on this topic. So I would first invite Dr. Amita Deb, who would be our first speaker for today. Dr. Amita Deb currently serving as Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women in Delhi. It's a state private university funded by the state government of Delhi. Ma'am, you can start your presentation.
Thank you, Paddy, and good evening to everyone. As Paddy mentioned, I think the whole world is witnessing and passing through this unprecedented and unpredictable times, which has put the whole economy into shackle. Not only economies, perhaps it is all about the global recession the world is going through, which is primarily changing the fundamentals of teaching, learning, job perspectives, career perspectives, and how the organizations are going to behave and operate. Perhaps it's not even restricted to this, even how the humankind is going to socialize, going to work, going to operate. So there is going to be a complete paradigm shift, and there will be an urgent need to reform and restructure our work, our way of working, our way of thinking, our way of processes, especially the organizations, all sectors, primarily even the education sector. And to change and reform, I think there will be certain sectors which are strongly hit, which everyone has seen, especially if you look at hospitality sector, aviation sector, tourism, touring, and food to some extent have been hit badly. However, definitely when any time, any such pandemic, which Paddy was mentioning, first time in the history, perhaps each one of us on the planet is witnessing for the first time. It's after the Second World War, this kind of a recession has hit the world. So there is an urgent need. Whenever such challenges comes in, there will be difficulty to struggle. There will be a difficulty to strike through these challenges, but at the same time, it ushers enormous amount of opportunities, and the ones who work on these opportunities are able to pass through this phase successfully. So if we look into, I personally feel, and I can foresee, there are essentially three attributes which will help us to pass through these unprecedented phase. First and foremost, to my mind, is agility. Agility is very, very important for the organizations to look deep inside into what is happening, and early insight, then realign the policies, the programs, and the procedures so that it can make maximum advantage out of it. And when it will come down to the workforce or even to the youth who will be the perspective further, who will be taking employment, it will be very important for them to go on to the accelerated learning and go in for experiential learning. It would be a blended mode of learning. Gone are the times when it used to be school and perhaps or just a classroom, perhaps it will become a history. Future will see a complete change, which will be a right blend of online education plus a classroom education. When you go for an online education, you see even UGC has come up that in every semester, they are open to the idea of 20% online learning. And perhaps the complete way the teaching learning process will change would be the blended mode of learning, wherein you are taking some online classes, some offline classes, some online practicals, some offline practicals. That will be the blended mode. Then experiential learning, rather than just a rote learning or a theoretical learning, it will be more onto the application and experiential learning. It will be a time, because we are going through a turmoil, it will be a time that not only a theoretical knowledge will help a student, unless and until we adapt to a situation of accelerated learning, we need to unlearn to learn the new things. We need to enhance our skills, reskill and upskill. These will be the mantras which will help us to tide through these times. And second thing, which I feel, there are certain sectors which are finding a dip, but then at the same time, there are certain opportunities which we can encash, and that is the digital transformation. We have been always talking of that AI is the fourth industrial revolution. And this has been the debate for the past 3-4 years, and it looks today it has become the reality. Digital transformation and the digital space is going to stay for minimum 2 decades. And what is important is whether I come from a STEM or I come from a non-STEM stream, we need to focus and see what best we can gain from the canvas of digital space. And any youth for that matter, if they have to make a career, I can see some questions who the students are asking, could it be that English honors is better? Could it be that this course is better or that course is better? I personally feel for me to become agile is very important, and for me to have a clear understanding of this digital space and be aware of at least one technology which will help me to survive. Gone are the days when things will go in offline mode. If you look into the sectors, technology is one sector which is going to boom for at least for coming 2 decades. Telecommunication is another sector which is going to witness a huge transformation. E-commerce is yet another sector, because we want to maintain a distance. Naturally, everything has to go online, whether it is a marketing which is going online, whether it is services which are going to go online, whether it's a product delivery which is happening online. So e-commerce, e-business will be the mantra which will be the biggest hit in the coming decades. And after that, if you look at, if everything is going to go online, then cyberspace, cybersecurity, because if I'm working on my digital payments, so these digital payments have to go secure, have to be very, very confidential and secure. So cyberspace will have a lot of future in the coming years. And similarly, if you see cloud computing, if you see virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, no matter whether I am a mechanical, civil, electrical, computer science, biotechnology, whether I am into the English honors, everywhere this digital technologies are going to help us. And third thing is, what is going to change in the case of teaching learning process or in the case of academics would be work from home, learn from home. If I'll do work from home or a learn from home, perhaps it will bring stop to this crisis. If I use this mnemonic stop, S-T-O-P, S, a social distancing. Learn from home will bring up social distancing so that this crisis, we will be able to get over it. T, travel. Usually, if you see, especially in metros, cities, we spend virtually 1 hour in going and 1 hour in coming back. In a year, you spend around 300 hours or 600 hours. If I take coming and going, 600 hours are spent only in travel. And if I convert it into 25 number of days are spent only in travel. So perhaps the travel will reduce. The coming times will see a blended mode of learning in which some learning will go online and some learning will go offline. Rather than having a centralized libraries, perhaps you will have decentralized libraries. Rather than having just a practical lab, perhaps the laptop will give me the complete practicals and the lab exercises. And in the case of stop, the P will be pollution. By having the learning from home, the travel which creates almost 30% emissions will reduce, pollution will reduce, and many things will reduce. And thus, these are the sectors, to my mind, which are going to grow exponentially. And we have a ray of hope there. What we need is our accelerated learning, a passion and a desire. Whichever sector we work on, there has to be a passion and desire. And a lot of problems students are currently facing, because suddenly on 24th March, there was a lockdown. And with this lockdown, everything became suspended. I will take the example of Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University. On 27th itself, we started with online classes. Initially, 70% students came online, and gradually we made them feel comfortable. And believe me, even the students who are non-STEM, BBA students and so on and so forth, they came online. Another interesting thing, we built up an online system immediately, and I'm very glad to share that we started with online assessments, online practicals, and end-term examinations which went online. And we finished the whole online assessment just day before yesterday. So this is the requirement, but yes, there was a lot of fear among students. What will happen if my internet connectivity goes off? What will happen to the exam? What will happen to my online assessment? So the batches were made, they were rescheduled, and it in fact gives a lot of flexibility. Student can learn it at any time, anywhere, any place. So I believe the future for the teaching learning process is going to go great with a blended approach, and it will be all experiential learning. Thank you, Paddy.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your reflection. And I think you made your point very clear that there is a sound future for information technology, artificial intelligence, e-commerce. These have actually helped during these times, and it will continue to do so even in the future. And therefore, students who are looking at career choices, focus with information technology, I think the message is very clear from Dr. Amita Dev, that you don't have to worry about opportunities or career opportunities or the disruptions which has been caused by the pandemic. You can continue to hold on to your career choices, and I think a strong voice is coming from Dr. Amita Dev. Thank you so much, ma'am, for those insights. May I now invite Professor Kamlesh Mishra, Vice Chancellor, Rishabad University. Sir, if you could focus a bit more, ma'am did mention about information technology, but sir, if you see, you know, the situation is quite interesting. You know, in 2008, when there was a financial recession, the Western world and also some institutions in India saw many students opting out of humanities and moving into technology and STEM. Because they wanted to protect the jobs, because the jobs were going down. And 2008 is the time when we also saw a huge reduction in the liberal arts schools took a dip in the United States, and we are seeing a similar pattern now. Since you are from, you're an economist and you do understand the space of humanities, it would be very good if you could reflect a bit, because a lot of concerns of students who wanted to take humanities, because are we going to be hit by a recession in next 2 years? Will they find jobs, jobs, or should they be moving into technology and healthcare, which could create jobs during this time? So if you could reflect on that, I would be grateful to you, sir.
Thank you, Paddy. Let me start by saying that I think it's important for us to understand that there are certain sectors of the economy which have a natural tendency to grow because they are so much linked to the future of the world. And those sectors are science and technology. No matter what happens, for the next 50 years, science and technology will continue to grow. We will continue to explore the world, we'll continue to explore planets, we'll continue to find new ways of living in the space. All these things will continue to happen. Yes, within these areas, there are always ups and downs that happen. For example, if we look at what's happening today, then we would find that, yes, if you are going to get into the area of mechanical engineering, probably you would be better off, because we expect a very high degree of growth in the manufacturing sector, which really caters largely to a lot of mechanical engineering students. Computer science and computer engineering will continue to grow for the next 30, 40 years. There's no doubt about it. And if somebody has an interest, that's an area that they should go, whether you talk about digitization or cloud computing, digital payments, everything is going to continue to grow. The degree of penetration of internet in rural India is also going to grow very, very, very fast. E-commerce is going to be an area which is going to grow. So far, we have seen in India, growth in e-commerce has been restricted to business to consumer, what we call as B2C. I'm expecting a big surge from in e-commerce as far as B2B is also concerned, which is going to be a new area of growth. So these are tremendous growth areas that are going to have network automation. But what I feel is that besides these are the conventional normally the areas that traditionally Indian parents have always said that, okay, become a doctor, become an engineer. But some areas are saturated, and obviously that's because of the demand and supply. We sometimes produce more engineers in certain areas than the availability of nuts and bolts. So obviously they don't get the type of jobs that they are looking for. But besides this, what has happened now that we have opened up very, very new areas of opportunity for students that never existed before. I feel the area of creativity is going to be one of those such areas. Now, when we say, already the Prime Minister has already started campaigning about Made in India. But I think what we are going to be looking at is not just made in India, but design in India also. And that's going to push the areas of design very much. So I would expect that students who have an inclination towards design go for it. This is the time. This is really, and it's going to be, because when you have a career in design, you have two options. You have an option of working, but you also have an option of becoming an entrepreneur. And a lot of design people who have expertise in the area of design have their own companies. They do their work, right? Lot of design students also work in the area of digital, which they don't really look only at the marketing side of the digital, but the creative part of the digital marketing component is handled by the people who work from the area of design. So I think that's a big growth area that is going to that we are going to see. Students who are coming with a background in sciences, please look at healthcare very, very seriously. This is going to be one of the fastest growing areas not only in India, but worldwide. Because of this crisis, we have all realized how fragile our healthcare system is. We don't even have a public health system in this country. But we know that we will have to come up to that level now. So when I say healthcare, I'm not talking only about dentists and medical doctors, but I'm talking about the paramedics, the support system. And these are very technical areas, so they will command very high premium in terms of salaries. So, students should be looking at areas like, optometry. They should be looking at areas like cardiovascular technology, medical laboratory sciences, operation theater technology. Now, remember, these are all areas of technology, because today even heart transplants are being done by robots. They're not just done by dogs, only human hands. So I think these are areas that are going to grow very, very fast, and the demand is going to surpass the supply that is available in these areas. So I would recommend that students should look at those. Students can also look at areas within the healthcare industry, areas such as hospital administration. We have very, very poor hospital administration system. And the reason for that is that I think doctors are good at working with patients and disease. They're not supposed to be spending their time managing hospitals. I think we need professional managers who are trained in managing administration of hospitals to administer hospitals rather than a doctor who is a cardiothoracic surgeon is doing, instead of doing surgery, he's actually doing the administration of the hospital. What a waste of resource, right? He commands a premium of more than 1 lakh per hour. And we are asking him to do a job which somebody can do it for 2 lakhs rupees a month. You know, so I think that's an area that will go. Another area will be an area, somebody who has a master's in public health is going to be very, very, very important, because public health is going to grow very, very fast. Entrepreneurship is another growth area that is going to be good, because what is going to happen is that what is so great about these universities? It's not that it is difficult to get in them, right? You can get into Harvard. It's not that you can't get into Harvard. What makes it difficult is difficult to get out. It's not easy to get out of that place. You really have to be good. Or you are so good that you can drop out and become an entrepreneur. And one of the things that Harvard does is actually produces entrepreneurs. And you look at most of the great entrepreneurs today, many of them are Harvard dropouts. So I feel that this public health crisis is going to open doors for new entrepreneurs. And I think getting into the field of entrepreneurship is going to be a great thing for students at this point. Look at the opportunities that are there. You know, a lot of students in India don't look at it very seriously. Maybe they come from a family background of services where people are working. They've seen their parents just having a job, and they feel very comfortable with that. I think the younger generation should take the risk of going and creating companies. They need to become job creators. India needs more of job creators rather than people who are just looking for jobs. So I would recommend that students must seriously look at entrepreneurship as a great option. I'm not talking about an MBA. MBA is for people who want to go and have a job. I'm talking about entrepreneurs. People who can convert an idea into a commercial venture. And there are amazing amount of ideas. But please remember, entrepreneurship is not about just an idea. A good idea is one to which we can put a monetary value. An idea on which we cannot put a monetary value has no meaning. It's in the shelf, it's in the file. Only if I can take that idea and convert it into a commercial value, somebody who is willing to take that, buy that, then I become an entrepreneur. Otherwise, there are a lot of ideas which have no meaning. So that's an area that I think it's important to know. If you look at areas of humanities and social sciences, I don't think that we should even get into that thinking that humanities, social sciences, or languages, or philosophy have no meaning. I always tell students one thing: irrespective of the decision that you make as to where you want to go, the vacancies are at the top. You have to be good at it. If you're good at it, you will make it. The markets are not always looking only at averages. In some areas, you need to be good. If you take philosophy, be a good philosopher. Train yourself. If you're getting into languages, be good at it, right? if somebody is doing an English major, what kind of a job are you going to do as an English major, right? Please. There are English majors who can make more money than an engineer can make or a doctor can make, right? Because they are into content writing. Who's going to do the content writing? And they charge you by word. I know content writers who make 3 lakh per month, just sitting at home. But they're exceptional. They're very good. So there is going to be a demand for these. Okay, in the social sciences, become an economist. It's a recession-proof job. If you're an economist, you're required when there is a recession. That how do we get out of it? You're required when things are good. How do we maintain it? Right? So social sciences, any area is good. Look at public administration. What would we say? Look at the state of our country. Look at the state of our cities and towns. We have a lack of public administration people who are well trained. So there is a demand. So what I would say is that for some time there is going to be a crisis. And let me say this very clearly, and a lot of people don't want to say it. It's going to be a rough ride if you're graduating this year. And I'm telling very openly to the students, you may be unemployed for the next 5 to 6 to 8 months also, because the economy will take time to pick up. Right now, the companies are trying to retain their people rather than to. And if they are going to hire, first they will hire those people that they had asked them to hang on and wait at home. Right? So I think students at this point who are graduating this year, my advice to them is, please don't panic. Even if you don't get a job for 1 year, it's not the end of the world. You will make it, right? And they need to also remember that they are not alone in this. The whole world is in it. Everywhere, the same thing is happening. So it's not that, one guy doesn't get a job and he's depressed. Don't be depressed. Because if you start getting depressed because you don't get a job right now in an economy which is going into dumps, then 90% of the world will be depressed. Because it's not going to happen. So I think they need to relax. At this time, what they need to do is to network with people in the companies, with the HR departments. Even if you don't know them, connect with them through LinkedIn or through some mechanism. Ask them for support. Ask them when are they going to hire. What is it that they look? And I would recommend that there are a lot of free online courses that are happening everywhere. They need to take these courses just to sharpen their skills, and they need to maintain their confidence, be in touch with their teachers, take their support, and have the confidence that you will make it. The economy will turn around. I'm giving 1 year time for India's economy to start returning back to real growth. Right? And this growth is going to transform India after this. And I think it's important that students start preparing these areas. E-commerce, blockchain, cybersecurity, medical tourism, diagnostic, pharmaceuticals, business analytics, network administration, entrepreneurship, online education, insurance, robotics. These are all areas that will grow, and they will grow by leaps and bounds. Right? But those who still want to go to the conventional education, there's no problem. The only thing is that the opportunities will be lesser because the growth will shift. The trajectory of growth is going to take quantum leap to a different direction. So it's not that we will not need civil engineers. We will still need civil engineers because the construction industry is going to boom back. It will take some time, but it will come back. So if somebody is going to join today civil engineering, they will take 4 years to graduate, right? In 4 years, we are going to be running well. So I don't want students to make a choice based on what is today. I think what they need to do is to educate themselves how India or the world is going to look like when they graduate after 3 years or 4 years. That's what they need to prepare. They should not choose their course or career based on what's happening today. They're not graduating, they're getting into a program. Right? And in 3 years, 4 years, a lot can change in this country. So that would be my advice to the students, that remain calm, don't panic, it's not the end of the world. If we make it out of this, we can create a great world for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra. It's always a pleasure to hear you. I also follow you on LinkedIn, and your post is always inspiring for young academicians like me. Thank you so much for your wonderful reflection. And I also should say that I think Dr. Kamlesh Mishra has made the points very clear. You don't choose or you don't make career choices for the immediate future. You make it for the long run. And the second point, which he has beautifully articulated, is do not worry about employment. This is a time for you to think about upgradation of skills, which I thought was beautifully put. And also, it is very fair to say and just reiterate what Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra said. If you have to be employed, you need to be good at it. You need to be best, independent of what discipline you're pursuing. I think these 3 points were beautifully articulated. Thank you so much, Dr. Kamlesh Mishra. I'll get back to you on the Q&A session. Thank you. Let me quickly invite Parimal Manke, the Vice President of the NIT University, which is actually in Nimrana, which is a state private university of Rajasthan. Welcome, ma'am, and please give your reflections on the topic shifting trends.
Thank you, Dr. Paddy. And I will just begin with the last point which Professor Kamlesh made. And that is exactly what I wanted to tell my young friends who are just about to make a choice of the higher education program and institution, that they need not worry, because actually they are going to come out of the higher education system 3 or 4 years hence. And these 3 or 4 years is going to be really exciting from the point of innovation that is we are going to witness. And in fact, the COVID world or post-COVID world, if there is a post-COVID world, is going to require more technology, more science, more innovation, and more entrepreneurship. As there are going to be more problems, solving those problems is going to be an exciting journey for my young friends when they just enter the world of work. Now, most of the areas have been already covered by my previous speakers, but I will like to just give a few trends that one observes globally and which really are creating new opportunities for us also in India. Now, first is that which was a trend even pre-COVID and post-COVID more, is towards deglobalization. So we see more and more countries taking the policies and making the strategies which are not for globalization, but it is more a nationalistic thought. And therefore we are going to have to deal with our own problems with the innovations that we can bring out for ourselves within our country. The industry restructuring is going to be, witnessed much more because there would be acquisitions and there would be mergers. So those small companies who are not having enough financial muscle may be acquired, or some equal size companies may come together and so on. And therefore, we need not see it in terms of loss of opportunities, loss of jobs, but it is a matter of restructuring the industry. And therefore, the jobs may go to some companies who have acquired other companies. So industry restructuring is very much going to be there, and that may only displace the jobs where they lie. The third trend that we are observing is globally that the supply chain adjustments may take place. And without naming the country, but we already know that worldwide, a number of countries have expressed that they may like to shift their supply chains from one part of the world to another. So we can see in India these as opportunities that we can grab for ourselves. Then, as rightly said, that some industries like hospitality, travel, tourism, they are in slump, but other industries are actually going to do much better and maybe making fortunes. And many industries already have been named, so I will not repeat. But for example, the EdTech companies, that the very fact that from kindergarten to the PhD, the entire education system is now shifting to online, you can see that the platform that we are right now meeting on, you can see that how much more business it has been making, and the same is the case for EdTech companies. So this is one example. Others have been mentioned, like healthcare, hospital administration and management, or even the old age care systems. So, you know, many have been mentioned by the earlier speakers, so I will not repeat. But if the jobs are losing in one industry, the other industry is making up for it. And my dear friends are only, you know, right now going to enter the university system. And if they make the right choice, they are going to be on top of the world 4 years hence. Remote operations. Now, you know, with COVID now around, the manufacturing industry or all the places, there is movement which was already there, intensified for remote operations. And, you know, we know that, and this is going to open out the entire area of robotics and, you know, process automation. And it is already has been a buzzword for some time, but it is just going to, you know, exponentially, the demand for robotics and in manufacturing industry for particularly, for example, is going to be huge. And therefore, if I just said that these remote operations, the deglobalization, the industry restructuring, the supply chain, global supply chain adjustments, and some industries taking more primacy because of the new demand, all these in higher education are going to require more technology, more innovations, and more science. And therefore, the areas like robotics, like machine learning and artificial intelligence mentioned by previous speakers, the IoT, Internet of Things, in biotechnology, gene editing technology, for example. So biotechnology also is a very, very futuristic, potentially very bright area. And not to mention of data science and data analytics. Now, these are some of the cyber security has been mentioned, the machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on. These are the areas in technology, but in science we are going to also require more genetic biology, nanomaterials, you know, semiconductor physics, environmental biology, environmental chemistry. So in science also, there are futuristic areas which are going to provide good opportunity, and particularly to those young minds who are research oriented. So they can plan on going for research in some of these areas. Finally, not to miss out on a comment on liberal arts and humanities, you know, liberal arts and humanities can never take a back seat. You know, as long as human civilization is there, the humanities and liberal arts will always be at the center of the stage, because they are the fountainhead of creativity. And even the technology programs are supported by humanities and liberal arts courses. In our university, every engineering program, every technology program has about, you can say, 20 credits, if not more, minimum, which are drawn from humanities and liberal arts. So, they are, one is that they support the technology programs, but on their own, they have to stand in, in good place. And they really are the fountainhead of creativity. So I would like to say that the COVID world, in fact, has thrown opportunity for more technology, more science, more innovation, and entrepreneurship. Because there will be many small, even students who may be doing their BTech and could become entrepreneurs. They can write some health code apps, and our students, they are always writing apps, new apps. So there is no limit to what even the COVID world presents as challenges to my young students. So I think the future is bright for them, because they are not already part of the workforce. They are the workforce to be, and which is full of interesting problems which mankind has to now solve. So I think instead of laboring the point, it will be nice to have interaction with the audience.
Thank you so much, Professor Parimal. You're absolutely right. I have been looking at the statistics also. If you look at the Fortune 500 CEOs, more than 65-70% of the CEOs do have a degree in liberal arts or humanities. And I was looking at another very interesting study in 2017, which says that 55% of the world leaders have a foundation degree in humanities or social sciences. So these are really good positives. There is an element of humanities helping people to improve their leadership skills, and that can never be discounted. You're absolutely right. I also wanted to validate one or two points which you did mention about the fact that if certain careers take a steep down, there are other careers which get a steep up. So it is for the students to understand where they should be spending their time, and there are good number of career opportunities for students which even they can consider during COVID times. I think these are some valid points that is coming from our speakers. So we will quickly go into Q&A session. I just thought before we go to Q&A session, I also wanted to, there's some questions coming from people, on the screens. Some questions are relevant, we can take them. Some questions are very generic, so I will put it, probably send it across to all of you. We can send an email response to them at a later point of time. But one question which I thought is quite relevant, I think probably I could ask this question to Dr. Amita Deb. Ma'am, if we do not know when the COVID vaccination is eventually going to come. Till the vaccination is not going to come, I think there will be certain measures that will be taken by the government when it comes to opening up the institutions. Even if the functioning starts, I don't know how, in what capacity they would start the institutions. Welcoming the new students. So I think there will be a mixture of online classes and also FTF model with the with the provision that fewer students attend a single class. So I really don't know. We are all wanting to see what kind of guidelines the Ministry of HRD is going to come up with, and how the institutions would start functioning. But there is a sense of worry in the minds of students who will be entering into universities this year. So there are two important aspects. One is pertaining to design school, which Professor Kamlesh Mishra can address. The other one, which is pertaining to information technology, which both Dr. Amitabh Deb and Parimal can reflect. Engineering school, traditionally speaking, does have certain aspects which are based on practical learning and lab-based learning. So even if we let's put the student scenario and students' perspective here. Uh, if the classes are going to go online, how do you think the institutions would still give the holistic learning experience for students, which does encompass the combination of classes, but also how they can do practical classes? How will you manage to do that? This is a kind of a worry which students have. Let me also put the similar question to Professor Kamlesh Mishra from a design school perspective. I have very closely watched the design wave in this country. If you see the last 6 or 10 years, the discipline which has got a huge, I would say, push in the imagination of youth in this country is design studies. And you also know design is based on experiential learning. 60-70% of the design actually happens outside the classroom in what you call as the design studios, where they are able to give, I would say, push to their creativity. So understanding that you're going to start the design school from this year and the design program is going to start, but let's say if it's going to go online, how are you going to address the ideas of students? How will they collaborate? How will they do this creative study, which is actually practical based and theoretical based? So I put two questions. Professor Dr. Amita Dev can respond, and then I'll go to Kamlesh Mishra, and then I'll come to Parin. Ma'am, you have to unmute.
That's a very, very pertinent question, and each of the youngster who has to make an entry into the university system is really worried about. More so, the UGC and MHRD is also equally worried and looking into all this. Numerous sessions have taken place, and there are sessions with the government, with the ministry also, where we are all debating on these issues as to how do we combat the present situation. But at the same time, I would like to tell to the students, in fact, it's very exciting for them. For the first time in the history, rather than going into the conventional classroom, maybe we will do even the induction program for the students to go online, where we'll be connecting with the students online. They may start with the classes which will be online classes. And we definitely have a component, as you rightly said. We have introduced a component which is called as happiness learning. Let them learn what gives them happiness. Let them learn what gives them a collaborative learning. Some classes which will go online, definitely. Some classes will go into the offline mode, where we will scatter the students. Let's say if the batch strength is 60, 30 students will attend class on one day. 30 students may attend the class on the alternate day. The 30 students who are attending the classes from home will go into the online mode, and the 30 students who are attending the classes in the university or in the college will go into the offline mode. Similarly, coming down to the practicals, there are various simulations. As I said, it's immaterial whether I'm studying biotechnology or any other field. A lot of simulation softwares and simulation tools are available. They give you a virtual tour, right from the designing aspect, whether it's a CAD, whether it is CAM, whether it is designing of a room, designing of a hotel room, it's a civil design, mechanical design. A lot of simulation softwares are available. So students are actually able to simulate that using the virtual classrooms, virtual practical rooms. And even, the 3D printing, where you used to have big machines printing, now we have 3D machines which are printing. So students are able to do virtually the practicals, which are online practicals. So even the practical classes will be scattered, so that half of the strength they do online, and half of them, they go into the practical labs and do it. Very recently in the Hindu newspaper I was studying, it was just yesterday, that even into the civil designs will undergo a change, where there you will have a hub and a spoke model. Rather than having one place where the students will come together, perhaps you will have a hub and you will have a spoke. In the spoke areas, a batch strength of 15 or a batch strength of 20 will move and do practicals, will take up offline classes. And for the benefit of students, I would like to mention that so much of our content is available online. right from arts, right from culture, right from humanities, social sciences, to management, to technology. Perhaps SWIM, if anyone, students must be aware of, there is a SWIM platform or NPTEL platform, NPTEL, National Project on Technology Enhanced Learning. Think of any topic and you will find there is a lecture which is from IISc Bangalore or from IITs or from the top-notch colleges. Similarly, under Coursera, under edX, think of even yoga, meditation, art, philosophy, culture, history. There is such beautiful courses available, and they're available absolutely free of cost. As I said, accelerated learning, experiential learning, they can always log in and take up those courses. And many universities and colleges, they are providing a provision, and they will be keeping a provision in future, that if you take up these online courses, you learn them, earn these credits, and these credits will be attached to your coursework. So I think it is a very exciting field. They don't have to panic. They don't have to worry. There is so much to explore. What you need is a clarity in your mind, a complete dedication. And the last point which I would like to mention is this online learning will bring a lot of academic integrity. Despite the fact that no one is watching me, still I'm doing my best. That is academic integrity. And the worldwide studies have shown the online and the blended mode has brought in a lot of academic integrity, which each one of us, if we encompass that, I think the future is going to go great. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Dr. Kamlesh Mishra.
Okay. See, from a design point of view, and I think it's that question is always going to be asked, that how do we do the practicals? Let me start by saying this. You would be willing to fly on a 747, knowing that maximum amount of time that the person who is on that flight, who is piloting it, is spent on a simulator, not on actual flight. So I agree that, that there are a lot of ways that it is possible for us to integrate those things. But at the same time, I'm also not saying that we are doing it because we love to do it that way. We are doing it because we have no other way of doing it. We are stuck in a situation where we have no other options. Right? We have very, very limited options. So one of the ways that this will happen, and here, my guess is as good as anybody's guess. When is everything going to come back to the normal, right? Everybody's saying new normal. I still continue to say that we come back to the normal, because I think we were already at normal, so we'll come back to the normal situation now. I think all depends on our own perspective on how long is it going to take. If we are talking about the next 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, that we should be, that students can safely come back and parents develop the confidence that students should go back to the universities, I don't think that we will have too much of a problem, because it's more about pushing your practicals to a later stage than doing it at early stages. So it can be managed. The problem will come if we start heading towards what we call a zero session. That, time is just passing. And it's now November, December, January, February, and nothing is happening. Probably that may be a situation that we may actually declare a zero session, no problem. There are no classes, there are no exams, everybody loses a year. It's fine. You start next year, right? But for example, let's say if I relate it to the area like design that we are into very heavily, I think design is based on creativity. And one of the things that we have done a lot of work to understand in designing this, or starting this new school of design, is that we have come to an understanding that right from the very beginning, from preschool up to class 12, we do a marvelous job in actually killing creativity of students. So one of the things that we are trying to do is to change that. Because Our education system is dependent on some very clearly understood concepts, and that's the only way that it is to be done. If a student writes a sentence which is other than what's written in the textbook, we say that it's wrong. If he comes up with a mechanism to solve the problem in a way other than what's there in the CBSE book, then he gets no marks for it, right? If he doesn't do all the steps, he doesn't get marks. I think we have systematically killed students' initiative. We don't let them think. We only pump information into their minds. We don't allow them to think at all.
And encourage plagiarism.
Yes. So I think what first, a new age university like us, like we have discussed even today on experiential learning and all these things. We all know that that's the right way to do it. But let's go one step ahead. So who is doing it? We are not doing it. We are just talking, right? We are not doing it at all. We know what is the right thing to talk, but we don't have the capacity to start and say, to hell with you, UGC, I'm doing it. You stop me. Because you cannot stop me from teaching my students the way I want to teach. As a university, as an administrator, as a teacher, don't tell me what my job is and how I should do it. I will find innovative ways to teach. Right? And nobody can stop me, even the regulatory agencies. But we need to have spine back to say we are going to do it. And that's what we are trying to do, is we are going to break the conventions. Right? Sometimes we have to break the rules, and we have to challenge the rules, that this is the way it is going to be done. Right? So I think it's more about, it's less about this equation that we have been talking, that hum practical kaise karenge, biology mein hum ye kaise karenge. I think if we allow teachers who are supposed to design and develop things, they will do it. Trust me, they will do it. They will find a way to make the student understand. But the biggest challenge in this country is we don't trust our teachers. We don't. And I think it's important that at least in the set of the university that we are setting up, that's one of the things that we are putting tremendous power in the hands of the teachers. So much power that even the vice chancellor is powerless. But I, as a vice chancellor, my job is not to become powerful. My job is to empower them and make the faculty run the university. Universities are not created by vice chancellors. It's a fool's paradise. It's all done only by the teachers. And they will find the ways to do it. They will come with the innovative solutions to even solve all your issues of how the practical is going to be done. Okay, let's take a case of interior designing. Every student is staying in his house, right? There is an interior design concept in his house also. Has he ever evaluated? Suppose I ask him to apply the principles of interior design in his whole house. And make a video recording of what it is. Are we not giving him some practical experience? Or do I have to take him into that classroom or a studio where I have 3 panels of interior design? I think it's possible. And that's what experiential learning is. For us to combine now let's actually be realistic about experiential learning. And that's why in our courses like entrepreneurship, we have 4 stages. We have a stage where they go into what we call an idea factory. Then they go into a place where they test their ideas, right? Then they go into what we call as a startup garage, and finally they end up into an incubation center. And the learning outcome is very, very clearly defined. Every student has to go out with a registered startup company. Now, what is more experiential than that? The whole program is designed to set up a company from day one to the last day of their graduation. They have to set up a company. And in the process of setting up this company, you give them academic inputs where they are required. So it is possible to do it. But we need to empower our teachers. And we have to allow them to come up with creative solutions to these problems.
Thank you. Very, very strong voices coming from Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra. You know, I absolutely understand because I've been I have been advocate of experiential learning, and I've you know, as much as people speak, nobody actually does it. I absolutely agree with you. You know, ma'am, I really wanted to hear your voices on the questions that I raised.
Yes. So, you know, at NIT University also, we do use virtual labs. So I think that is something now, you know, technology has thankfully given us a different way of conducting labs. And I think that's already said. But I would like to add that what during this lockdown period, and now that our classes are all running online, what we have done is that we have tried to create the entire campus ecosystem to the extent possible, meaning that all our clubs are active. So we have conducted hackathon, ideathon online. We have poetry recitation or even dance competition and you know, debating competitions. So different clubs, they are coming out with ways to you know, really keep our students also engaged with co-curricular activities, not because they are also in lockdown, you know, caught in the at home for 24 hours, and they are young and energetic, and therefore we must create more avenues outside the just the courses and the studies. So I think all our clubs also have innovated during this time and kept them engaged. I'll just add one more point, that what happens is our final semester students are actually learn from home and work from home format, because they go for industry practice for 6 months. And therefore they are all over the country in different organizations, and they are also in lockdown now, working from home and that learning from home, because you know that work is also supposed to be guided by our faculty. So it's learning and working together, two sides of the same coin. The project they deliver to the organization and they derive learnings. So our the last semester students are in that dual format of work from home and learn from home.
Thank you so much. You know, I just wanted to give a loud message to the students. It's very clear not to get bogged down. You know, it's a COVID situation which will eventually go away. We're all very privileged. We're all having access to internet. We're talking about learning, but there are so many students who do not have this luxury. You know, so let's sign off on the note that with the hope that we will come back to the normal, as Professor Dr. Kamlesh Mishra said. It's not the new normal, it's just back to the normal very soon. And students, do not be worried that you are having good career choices still to make during the time of COVID. There is good reassurances coming from all the vice chancellors, and I absolutely agree to one of the points which Kamlesh Mishra sir made, and also everybody made, that institutions are actually built by the faculty. So let's reinvest our trust and faith, and let's give the academic freedom to faculty to build great institutions. Thank you so much. Now I would invite Sanjeev to give his word of thanks. Thank you.
I'm very thankful to all the speakers for their pearls of wisdom. I think Dr. Kamlesh Mishra's message resonates with what our company is all into. For the last 25 years, our company was into organizing exhibitions, and we only focused on human interaction. This COVID brought us social distancing. and we had to adapt in these 3 months, and we created the platform, still having the interaction, but we made it digital. So I think the time is that you need to innovate with times, keep the main focus there, and I think we are ready to go. Thank you so much, and we are very thankful to QS iGauge for bringing these thought-provoking sessions. And I think we need to sign off because we have another session lined up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the attendees, and my special thanks to all the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, Atul. Thank you.